All this week, we're highlighting hurricane heroes, people who stepped up during disastrous storms to try to make a difference.
Yeah, we all saw the devastation left behind in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina in 2005. But when a woman in Pennsylvania saw it, she made a life-changing decision to help by moving to New Orleans.
Christina Drake. Oh, we're so excited to bring you in. We both want to say your name. Christina Drake joining us now. Christina, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
This is truly incredible.
Yeah.
I'm trying to wrap our minds behind what it was that motivated you to move. We're talking more than 1,000 miles away from home to New Orleans.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of crazy, a lot of faith in God. When Katrina first happened, I had a child still in high school, so I couldn't go right away. But 2 years later, I happened to get fired from my job due to an illness, and I sat down on the couch and looked up and said, "Now what?" And I got the clearest answer I've ever had in my life, which was, now you go to New Orleans and help. So over the next few months, I sold everything but what I could fit in my car and looked at different organizations that I could work with and settled on an AmeriCorps position with Project Homecoming in New Orleans. The plan was to stay there for 11 months. That turned into almost 10 years.
Wow. Now, did you have any previous ties to New Orleans at all?
None whatsoever.
So what was it about that storm and that city that you just felt that calling to?
The amount of suffering that happened was just mind-blowing. And I remembered back when I was a single mom and at one point had been homeless and thought that was so horrible. But when I saw how many people just literally lost every single piece of their lives in one fell swoop, I couldn't help but go. I had to.
So now, as you mentioned, you're talking more than a decade later at this point. What is it that has caused you to stick around?
Well, 2 months in, if you've ever been to New Orleans, you know she'll suck you right in. And it ended up being really the first place that ever felt like home to me. And the people, there was so much work to do, and nobody was, I'd never seen anybody quite so grateful and inspiring and happy, genuinely happy all the time. And it was home, and they needed help, and I could do that.
And
well, eventually
yeah, absolutely. I believe you're near Baton Rouge now. Were you involved in any of the extreme flooding in Baton Rouge from last year when you had that system come across the Gulf?
I am. It actually ended up being a very similar story to how I got to New Orleans. I was actually in the last week of the project that I was working with in New Orleans, and that's when the flood happened. I came up to volunteer at the Red Cross for a week, and then the Presbyterian South Louisiana and Presbyterian Disaster Assistance had a meeting about the flooding and asked if I would come and run. I did. I moved to Baton Rouge.
So, I mean, you know it's still hurricane season. You know we can have storms still. Are you ready to pick up everything and move somewhere else if there's another big storm, or are you just going to try to stay in Louisiana and help people there?
Well, I get that question a lot. I tend not to follow storms. I tend to want to see it through, which is a big reason why I stayed in New Orleans. But with over 100,000 homes and 22 parishes destroyed last August in Louisiana, I can't leave. We're just a year into it, and practically nothing's been done. So we've got a long road ahead, and I'm just get people home. Only then would I consider going somewhere else.